Okay, well, welcome to another DWI podcast. Um, Today we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess we kind of talked about Simunitions before, but
Did.
since this is fresh and I just did a SWAT event recently, I was thinking about I guess we didn't really talk about like gear as much and like training application.
What
Um,
you say?
yeah,
Na
so
na
there's
na 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 na.
Street, Chris, you need to take the foresight. Go, go, go. I actually
Oh,
watched
what
all
a
of
good
SWAT
movie,
then
dude!
on.
It was like it wasn't that weird time where it was like right when action movie was like trying to figure out how to be like new, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
how to be more realistic. Because the action movies before that was all like you have your like Rambo or like Die Hard, but like SWAT like tried to be more realistic, but it like didn't quite kind of figure it out, I guess. But I liked it though.
Also, Jeremy Renner being like one of the coolest bad guys.
Yeah, it was. You mean Hawkeye?
Hmm.
Yeah, Hawkeye is a bad guy.
Yes. He actually, I think he plays a good heavy, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and
Um,
we just won't talk about his stint in the Bourne series, huh?
I guess not.
That wasn't his fault though. Like he did a good job in it, but holy crap, that movie was dumb.
Anyway, yeah, so I just finished this, I just finished participating in this SWAT event, and I was just thinking about because there was it's summertime right now, so it's really hot, and doing simunitions and like all the gear you need to wear is typically it's a more of a burden than their usual like tactical Tuesday at the range, right? Because it's like I'd imagine that anybody who's like wearing gear to go shoot at the range, and let's say you have access to a range where you can do that kind of stuff. Typically, you're doing like two gun or like tactical like manipulation, like training and stuff, and maybe you like wear your kit. So like you'd wear like a chest rig or a plate carrier, and then if you're like really extreme, you got like helmets and like other kinds of like crazy stuff, right? And then if you're like really really extreme, you're wearing like cryo precision tuxedos, So it's kind of like one of those things where like, all right, when you do simunition, because you're actually shooting projectiles at each other, it's like very different, and you're also like using like real guns to like point at people, and so like there's kind of like that I guess it's like interesting because normally you would never do this, right? Like you would never point live guns at people. And so, excuse me.
Yeah, you got
Basically,
something stuck in your throat, huh? You all right there?
yeah, safety first, always,
Yeah, safety.
always,
Always
yeah,
follow the rules of
always,
the
yeah,
firearms, right?
yeah.
Never point at
Four,
something.
four, five.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the weird part about doing this kind of training is that you kind of have to break that hard line of like, you're not pointing guns at people and like things like that because you're not just like shooting an airsoft gun or a paintball gun. You actually have converted your live firing gun to fire simunition. So it's like, you know, we do like a bunch of safety checks to make sure everyone's like only using simunition stuff, but it's like easily you could accidentally like shoot a real bullet at somebody, right? So obviously you don't want to do that. So there's that aspect of it, and then on top of that, you need to wear extra protective gear when you're training because you're getting shot by these little, basically like pieces of plastic with paint in them or whatever, like the simunition ammo. So typically I'll kind of go through like the type of gear that I wear for this because um, it kind of varies depending on like what your role is. So because typically, since I have some training, a lot of times I'll be called in to be op 4 or opposition forces. So this would essentially be like as low as just like civilian plain clothes with like a handgun or a rifle, but just like with like almost like no tactical gear, all the way up to like cry outfits, plate carriers, helmets, gas masks, and like basically like near peer op 4, right? So this is essentially like something that I think is interesting with the way that SWAT does training is that a lot of times it almost feels like, and I don't know if this is their leadership or what's causing this, but like a lot of times they'll just set up like these scenarios that they think will happen, and they just execute the scenarios, but then they keep doing the same scenarios over and over again. And I'm like, I don't know if this is really like training you guys to like handle this kind of stuff, because ultimately anybody nowadays, like, you could go and like get a, a tactical shooting class from literally anybody, and then like buy like, way better guns. Like usually when I show up to these kind of events, a lot of the officers will be eyeballing my gear and my kit and my guns, because a lot of the stuff I can get, because I can just buy it as a civilian, they basically are kind of jealous of it, because they have to like go through extra like red tape and bullshit to like get like a hand stop on their rail. Whereas like for me, I could just buy whatever I want. So then like a lot of times, like this past event, one of the scenarios, I got arrested, and basically one officer took the gun, my rifle, off me because it was slung on me, and the other officer was arresting me. And as he was quote unquote cuffing me, he turns to the guy who has my gun in his hands, and he's like, "Hey, don't throw that guy's gun on the ground because it's got really nice stuff on it." So it's like interesting to see that it's like they basically are like, they're having us do like these kind of scenarios, and a lot of times they're fixed, and basically it's like, if you're not letting the opposing forces, or whoever your like hostiles are, act in whatever way that they want to, then you're not going to get like crazy variables to better understand who you're fighting against, right? Because like literally anybody could go out and just become a really good shooter if they're really dedicated, buy all of the same kit. Like you can buy like night vision, you can buy helmets, you can buy, plate carriers, you can buy plates, gas masks, and like, all the like multicam outfits and stuff, like basically like, and then just look 100% like the dudes who are responsible for taking down like, active shooters and stuff. And like you could even like slip into their ranks if you were good enough, and like basically just slide into the stack and like fuck their shit up, right? So it's like really interesting.
Apparently that happened in like one of the protests, or like one of the like rallies, when they're like had some like cops or the National Guard go, and then somebody just like wore some gear and just like slipped in. Like he got caught,
Dude,
but then
yeah. So like that's like crazy, right? Like it's just one of those things where like, I mean, just I can't even imagine being like an officer who's responding to a situation, and then all of a sudden the dude behind me doesn't like squeeze my, or like do the signal for like, oh, ready to go. And then like you look behind, it's like, wait a minute, that guy doesn't have our unit patches on. It's like, dude, that would be like scary as fuck, Like, I don't know. What do you think?
Among Us. Among Us. Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's I mean, that's just trouble in terrorist town, but yeah. Yeah, that is something interesting. Especially we talked about this in the last sim video, or the last sim podcast, but yeah, the training aspect, I think. So I've done it on both ends, right? I've been in training, and then I've also been at Op 4 for someone else's training, and definitely it's more fun to be Op 4 because you have a lot less rules. Right. Whereas like when you're actually in training, you have to follow, or if you're doing, whether you're military, law enforcement, whatever agency, like you have rules you have to follow. Whereas like, yeah, whether it be your, guiding policies, your ROEs and all that. So you can't just do whatever you want. You have to work in the stack. You have to work in a team, whatever. Whereas like when you're Op 4, I remember we were just like, bro, I'm going to dual wield, and then, like dive out a window, like, and we were also wearing like heavy gear, so we were also weren't afraid of getting shot at all. Whereas like when you're training, you usually train for your gear, but as an Op 4, we were wearing like heavy padded, so we don't care. So we would literally just go out and just like do dumb stuff. We would try to get on top of a roof and basically snipe them, like just blind fire around corners just to give people something. Because like, right, it could be realistic, but you don't know. And like it's like you say, unless you're put in that situation, what are you gonna do if somebody's literally blind firing around a corner down a hole? Like how are you supposed to deal with that, right? Like normally because normally the way you're supposed to, like clear or take, I guess gunfight or confront is just go out, right? Like once you engage, you go out, you stand your ground, and you shoot until it goes down, and you hope your plate does it. You hope your plate takes it, or they just don't hit you. But if somebody's literally like corner shot or blind firing, what are you gonna do? You're gonna try to shoot his gun, shoot his hand, right? Like that. But that's something like you have to think about, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you don't get in that situation unless something happens to you, like in a sim, you know.
So I've had.
Oh my god,
Whoa, this is
there's an
sick.
MP. Oh my god, dude, I want there's an
Yeah, that's
MP9
hella
one.
cool. This
Fuck.
one too.
No, the MP9 is
Um,
way cooler. Fuck, that kind of makes me want an MP9. Oh my god.
so I've done both sides as well. Probably not as much as you have, but like as on the other side, being a civilian and participating as Blue 4 and being on the like the hero side,
Mhm.
it's like interesting because yes, you have like more like rules of engagement and like rules you have to follow when engaging. But I think it's also interesting when you're working with a team that has very good tactics versus having like for example, if like a lot of your op four are running around independently doing whatever they want, like they don't really have like strategy or a plan, then essentially what it
Yeah.
is like seeing tactics work and like basically like take down opposition, I think is like very interesting, right? I mean it may not necessarily
Eh,
be like more fun, but it is
Yeah.
cool to like see tactics work, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the
Um
scary part. And I think we alluded about it. It's like when I've done op four, I was op four with other people that are also similarly trained. So it's like
yes.
so
Yeah.
basically, if the op four knows the rule book, you can really fuck with them. Basically,
Yeah.
like
Well, that's
and
why like
and that's why
yeah,
it's
go ahead, sorry.
scary. Sorry, go. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, but
Uh,
that's why it's like I can see why it's also you don't want to advertise and also do too
yeah.
many, and maybe who knows, maybe the ones without civilian, like maybe they do like interesting scenarios or like more, I guess, random, but that is something that does kind of I think throw a wrench into things because if we know like if we know their ROEs, right, which is they're not gonna just shoot people, then it's insurgency. You can really that's why it's so hard to deal with guerrilla warfare and insurgency because they can work around the ROE.
Yeah. Well, so basically what I was going to say is that like it's interesting as well because if you have guys who know the protocols and they know the tactics and strategies that they use, and then you're having them like circumvent or like mess with their strategies because you know what they're going to do, it forces them to think outside the box, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's like some like level of training there that's good because then they're not just following a strict like guideline rule book, they have to adapt accordingly. So I think that's like kind of one thing that I think sometimes when they hold certain SWAT events, they don't always take advantage of that because they'll have like scenario A where A, B, and C happens, and like basically like if they're doing this enough times, often I've seen officers who are I'm not blaming them for this, but it's like they're just like jaded because they've done the scenario so many times they could do it in their sleep, which is kind of a good thing, right? Like being able to like execute stuff like flawlessly is great, but at the same time, it doesn't inspire them to like keep thinking about how to be better because they're just going to execute this fixed scenario and they don't really have any variants that they can like play with, right?
So what you mean?
So
What you
for
mean is we need speed running. We need force on force speed runs. Be like,
yeah.
okay, you gotta find a way to cut you gotta shave 2 seconds off. All right, maybe if you pie the corner and swing around, you can save 2 seconds here, and then get a world record run.
So like for example, the we had some situations where one of the dudes who was the like organizing the event and like basically planning out some scenarios, he was telling us he was like, "Hey, I want you guys to be like more deviant and like do like more like I guess like basically like mess with them, right?" So like we had some ideas where like this is not even sure if I should really go into too much into detail about this, but basically I stole a bear cat and it was one of those things where it's like they're not expecting that because like that's not like listed specifically in the scenario, so it kind of threw them for a loop a little bit and they were trying to figure out how to deal with that because they just don't expect, even though it could totally happen, right? Because like you ever see like I mean, you can see this in movies and TV shows and stuff where like the cops show up, they jump out and they respond immediately to the event, but then they like leave the door open to the cruiser,
That's
right?
happened.
And
Yeah,
then
people
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
steal
like
cars all the
oh,
time.
all the
Yeah,
time, right?
yeah.
And so then basically it's like that should be like part of the protocol is that like they like slam the door shut, lock the doors, as quickly as they can, and then like they engage the target or whatever, right? So basically what it is like that happened and it like really like kind of like rattled them, right? And like there was another thing that they wanted to do, which is really funny. We launched so in this particular case because it the training happened at a school. Actually, I should pull up this picture that I got. It's of course it's been edited for to protect identities and stuff, and the school name might not be totally 100% accurate, but anyway, so yeah, basically like it was training at a school, and it was like a joint event, so it was a bunch of teams there and stuff, and they're just like all like practicing all their techniques and stuff. And the funny thing was like basically we were a like there's supposed to be active shooters, but I guess it could also be like a terrorism event or something like that. So we launched a counter assault because essentially what it is they were like, oh, if you can figure out where the command post is, then we can launch a counter assault. And like the guy who was like organizing was like, it's a pretty obvious like location, and like it should be relatively obvious, but I can't tell you because then they'll like blame me for being like, oh, you told them where the command post was and then they launched the counter assault. It's like, no, but it's like obvious that like the thing that we're looking at is the command post. We're like, okay. So then we had two of us launch a counter assault. After the scenario kicks off, so a bunch of the other people are like running around causing havoc, so most of the forces are diverted to like taking care of that. So two of us launch a counter assault. We walk over, and basically, as we're walking over, we see there's a cruiser that's like kind of farther away from where the scenario originated, and basically, there's just a guy like setting up a drone, and the officer who is like in charge, he was like, "What's your call sign?" He gives me the call sign, and he's like, "So and so call sign is being engaged by two active shooters. He's down." And the guy was like, you could see his face drop because he was like in the middle of setting up the drone, and then now he's like out of the scenario. We walk up to the command post, and like we're just standing there, and basically like in front of the command post, and they call out the commander, and the commander is like, "What's going on?" And he was like, "Do you have any security here?" And they're like, yeah," but it's like clearly that they don't have anybody on security for like the command post. And like basically like I look inside, so the front of the vehicle is like shaded so they can't see through the front, meaning you can literally walk up to the front of the command post and it's like they couldn't see you coming. But there's a little side window by the passenger door, and I can kind of see a couple people sitting at desks and stuff. And they kind of just look like, technicians or whatever. And I see one of them starting to put on a helmet because they're looking out that little window at us just standing there like all aggressive and stuff. And the guy comes out and he's like, "What's going on?" And it was like, you don't have any security set up. The whole command post just got taken over by the op four, and you could see on the guy's face, like you could just tell that he's mad because this is not supposed to happen and it's not part of the drill, but he's also like not wrong. Like the guy who's organizing is not wrong. So basically he's like, okay, like fine. You know what I mean? You kind of made your point. So they let us back loose and like we go and do some more havoc somewhere else. But it was just like interesting because like they're actually starting to think of like different things to kind of make like more interesting scenarios. So that's what I think is cool. Like they're doing a good job, kind of like starting to anticipate the unknown, right?
Yeah, like the Gen Zers, because it's like the TikTok, the Gen
Oh,
Zers,
dude.
like they have no fear for their life. They're just gonna think they can fucking 360 floss and then
No scope.
just no scope, and then it's like
Yeah.
Fortnite. So you gotta worry about that, right? They're just gonna run out. They're gonna be like, hey, look how many stars I can get on GTA, and then
Yeah.
it's like
They're
yeah,
like,
see, like
it's like, how come my
launch an
ladders
assault
aren't being
on
built?
launch an assault on the command post, right? It's all gaming terms. You gotta think like a gamer.
Yeah.
What is a gamer gonna do right now? It's like must
Dude.
construct additional pylons.
Yeah.
You just Eminem all the way to their command post.
Oh, but dude, so like going back to like the gear part, because I think that really I kind of wanted to talk more about that. The worst thing about doing this like training is wearing a cup. It's like I kind of understand, like, there's lots of sports that you wear cups for and stuff. Like I totally get that. But it's like also one of those things where the chances of like I guess getting shot to where it hits you in the junk, like in your baggy pants, is like relatively low, but the chance is there.
I mean,
So
I feel like every time I've done it, the chance is always there, but it's like Sims, paintball, be airsoft, whatever. It's like literally Murphy's law. Like you
yeah.
will have one like pixel. You'll have one fucking like centimeter of like exposed skin. The projectile is gonna find that. Literally, I was wearing gloves, and then just to make it easier, right? I cut out 3 fingers, so like to be fingerless, so like semi fingerless, right? Of course, it hits me on the fucking trigger finger. Where it's like it's per every time, like regardless.
Well,
So
but I mean, okay, yes, but statistically speaking, there are places you're gonna hit way more often, right? So then it's like, you can bulk up on that. Like one of our buddies, he has like these like they're almost like shin guards, but he wears them on his forearms because your forearms get shot like a lot. Like
yeah,
I'd say like most of the impacts that I've taken are like in the arms and like kind of like the some like thigh areas and stuff. And it's like, of course, I never do this without a cup, but I'm definitely like looking for an alternative to try to have better protective gear that's more comfortable. Just because it's like sometimes we're doing like I was there for like 8 hours. I think like almost 9 hours, and so I was wearing it a little bit beforehand for travel, and then like I pretty much took it off when we were done. But I was like, man, this is fucking brutal.
I just do
Um,
I like I mean, and you don't look as cool, but I like just like the sim, the FX, this branded, just like groin protector, just like the one you wear on the outside. Because again,
yeah,
you can just put it on whenever and then take it off whenever. So I do like that
I
one.
was I was actually thinking about this, but I have a friend who works with textile stuff, and I was thinking about having him make me like a tactical underwear that I can like wear under my
Tactical
pants. Like,
underwear.
well, okay. So how like sometimes like in rifle bags you can feel like the outer edge of the soft rifle bag has like a little bit of foam padding inside of like a Cordura finish or something like that. So, like, if you could make something similar, maybe with like a different material that like is softer or something like that, but basically make it like a foam padded, like kind of like a swimsuit. You know what I mean? That you would wear like over your briefs, but then you pull your pants over it. I think like that would be like genius because then it would be really comfortable, and you wouldn't have to like I really don't understand why this doesn't exist already, I guess, but basically it's like I think we could have something custom made that would be comfortable that you could wear all day and like it would just
Armor underwear.
armor underwear.
Uh, there's some weird looking ones.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get too much into that. But anyway, um, here's another picture. Well, these aren't really like too interesting, but the guy's got blue can, got the blue bolt in there. It's pretty cool. Like you guys see some of the blue handguns and stuff. But yeah, so like, so actually, wearing like the gas mask, for instance, if you just kind of like get used to it, like I'm actually pretty used to wearing gas masks quite often now. So generally speaking, oh, this is me actually with all my previous paint splatters. Um, Actually, you can see even better on this picture right here. But this is basically like what I was wearing. For one of the runs, I wore a Simunition FX, like kind of like a protective face and helmet thing, which is kind of funny because it looks
Construction worker
like a
hat.
hard hat. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like a
yeah.
black hard hat. And then here on our Instagram, there's a picture of me with my gas mask on. Of course. Wow, that's great. Anyway, yeah, so basically, I guess you can kind of see it here. I'm just gonna
Well, I pulled it in.
cheat. Okay.
Who's holding it like a bow? Who's
Oh
holding?
yeah, it was really funny because one of our buddies had basically he just was like, I think he was doing something with his gun. I don't really know, but anyway, he's the third dude in the picture, and I think he's just looking at his like mag well or something. I don't know. It was kind of funny because that picture was just taken as we were walking away. So it's like I just so happened to be looking cool, and like our other friends are like they're just walking and stuff, but like we're just walking out to the next scenario, and it's just like I'm looking back and it's like, why is he like holding his gun like that? It's pretty funny. Um, Anyway, yeah, so basically like I usually wear an Airboss LBM gas mask. It's pretty comfortable. And then I have an ops core helmet and amp ears to cover my ears and my head. And basically I typically will sometimes have something around my neck. Like I have a neck, like a padded neck cover piece, and then sometimes I'll put a shamag on or something like that. But yeah, it's like one of those things where like so because it's summertime, right? So it's like super hot. But I'm wearing like essentially the Magpul equivalent to the Arc'teryx Atom jacket, so it's
Photo.
insulated, which sucks. Yeah, here let's see. Actually, in this photo, so um, you can kind of see it's like it's an insulated jacket. So it's hot. I've got a plate. I've got a Cry JPC on top, and yeah, basically I'm wearing the like Cry pants and stuff. I mean, it's fucking brutal. And then like on top of that, like actually the Force on Force mask also I think is worse than the gas mask, even though like it's not fully air sealed. It's just like all the foam like lining on the inside. Ugh, it's terrible.
It's way hotter. I feel like
Yeah.
the gas mask. It's its own like level of bad, but it's like a different level of bad. The FX mask is terrible. I hate that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a mistake. So I went back to my regular setup. And also, the second scenario, we had like comms up. So I was running like radios and stuff. And like, I'd actually never used radio like comms through the gas mask yet until that day. So it was kind of nice to know that like it actually works pretty well with just having the mic like laid over to where the membrane is on the Airboss. So that ended up working out well because it's not integrated into the mask. Like I don't have a like a comms plug-in for my gas mask.
Laugh at the poor. Point and laugh.
Well, I mean, I
Fine.
don't get supplemented
I
by
don't have one. I don't have one either, so it's all right. Look, man,
dude. Like,
I just make my own. Okay, can't afford sodas. Make your own.
dude, actually though, so the other thing that's interesting is that like all of us provide all of our own gear. Like the obviously the FX mask that I'm wearing here, they just loaned out to us, but like I also have my own stuff. So it's like
But
everything that
do they own you? Do they loan you ammo, or do you have to bring your own ammo?
so normally they give us ammunition.
Yeah, that's fine.
That would probably be like the only thing. But here's the thing though, you still have to have at the very minimum a blue bolt.
Yeah,
And if
well,
you want to run a sidearm, then you have to have your own Sims kit or pistol, like whole pistol. So it's like those things. One, they're not cheap, right? They're pretty expensive, and two, they're also like really hard to buy as a civilian. So like that's like kind of like a hard buy-in in terms of like one, if you wanted to do this, right? You would I mean you'd be in this like I'm in it like thousands of dollars of equipment, and then on top of that you have to be able to acquire the stuff, and you have to be in a position where they trust you enough to do, um, like op 4 for them, right? Like, because a lot of times they'll be like, oh, if you don't really have like the level of training that like we think is like good enough, then we're not going to have you be op 4. We're just going to have you be a role player, which I think is still cool and it's like fun to do. Like, you can sometimes be like an injured person and they'll have like medics come in, like, escorted by SWAT, and then like they carry you out on stretchers or like, whatever. And like there's like you can also technically like participate as like sometimes there would be bystanders where it's like you're just like running around like screaming, or like, like they have different roles, right, that you
Yeah.
can like volunteer for. And like they obviously provide like, the masks you need to wear and like all that jazz. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like, if you actually want to be op 4 and like fight them, it's a little bit of a different story. So I'd say like, it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely something you kind of have to be ready to like throw down a bunch of money and the training too. And you have to be able to essentially show the departments that like you're capable of doing the things that they want you to do. Because in some cases they'll have you like exert like tactics and like, do like flanking and like, like other stuff that basically like gives the challenge. But then like, if they just pulled any random person on the street and they're just like, okay, go through this building and like flank them and like do all this, and then they're like gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? Or like they won't know, right? So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah.
Yeah. We just got some. Well, not just, but we do have some stress fest. That's what it was. It's basically it's taser tag. That's what it is.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's another thing. It's like obviously, I think Sims are still like the standard, but I think there's probably going to be more and more use in like what's essentially just laser tag, but this is called stress vest, and the big difference is it just tases you. Like you can adjust it from no tase where it just vibrates to all the way where it actually tases you. So you still get that like I don't want to get shot, but the nice part is because nothing is getting shot out. It also means you can do it anywhere, and also you don't have the problems like Sims where like the ballistics just aren't the same, or as in like not the accuracy so much, but like the reliability, right? Or
Mhm.
like the stress vest, because essentially you have it's airsoft. They just give you airsoft guns, either electric blowbacks or like gas blowbacks, right? But because of that, it's pretty fun.
That sounds
Maybe
cool.
it is pretty fun because, like I said, you can do it in like you're doing it in a car or in a building where you don't mind breaking stuff. So that's the nice part. So maybe who knows? Maybe that'll be the future, 'cause,
Hmm.
and they'll be a lot cheaper overall, right? Even though I think the buy-in is about maybe around the same, but slightly less. But at you don't need to add anything more because you don't have to buy Sims, and it's
Yeah, because I would say like that's also one of those things where like the
like
level of danger, no, the
yeah. Keep
level of
talking.
danger that goes up when you use Sims, because like one of the reasons why Simunitions aren't sold to civilians is because basically like they're kind of less lethal in the sense that they're not they're not non-lethal, or what is it? They're not like totally safe. Like there have been people who have been seriously injured or even died from simunitions because it's just shit happens and you're using like real guns too. So basically like they don't want it to be essentially like expensive airsoft to where like people will just like mess around. Of course, I'm kind of like on both sides of this because I kind of understand like one of the reasons why, and it's like a CYA kind of thing. But
Yeah.
at the same time, I also think that like civilians should have access to the same equipment that law enforcement has for training, or basically I'm a strong believer that like you should be able to own anything the law enforcement or military has. But at the same time, it's like I can understand the reasoning as to why they like make it harder for people to get this kind of stuff. But it's like it's also one of those things where you're not prohibited from buying it either, right? So like for example, if you go on Gunbroker right now and you type in Simunitions, you can find like kits for guns, or you can even buy like full pistols or like simunition guns. And so like it's something you can buy. It's just that you can't buy them very easily. Like there won't like a lot of retailers won't sell to you if you're not a department or something like that, or like you can't buy them from the companies directly because those companies are designed and set up for like a acquisitions person in the department to reach out and like buy them for the department and so forth. So yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't totally agree with it, but I can kind of understand why they do it.
And we talked about it last time, but it's also a real gun is the problem.
Yeah, yeah,
that when you buy like a full sim pistol, it's a real gun. So you still have to go through the same trouble as like you have to legally be able to own a semi-automatic pistol.
yeah. But you also can buy actual guns. So then it's like kind of funny that it's like, oh, well, these things that just shoot paint markers, we won't sell it to you, but otherwise you can buy real guns. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of funny. Like, I mean, I guess to me it would make more sense if it was like, if like let's say you're in a country where like civilians can't own guns, then it's like, okay, well, we also will not sell you like force on force stuff because you can't own guns. So then like we're not going to sell you this stuff either. So then basically it's like that kind of makes more sense like logically, but then like in this case it's like, well, you can own the guns that you can put these into, but we won't sell you the conversion parts or like the guns themselves.
HK conversion kit for $400.
Whoa, illegal.
Cool. That's kind of cool.
Illegal. All right. Anyway, I don't know. You got anything else you want to share about that?
No, I think it's such a niche topic too. But if you somehow have the gear, have some training, have like live near in a place where the department is cool, maybe go try it. Try your luck. Who knows? Like,
well, this is definitely something I would say. Like, I will say that a lot of the departments where I live, and I'm sure this is kind of like in general, there's not a lot of people who are willing to volunteer their time. And it's like, even if you were just willing to volunteer your time, because it's like there's more jobs aside from being bad guys that you could take up. It's just that if you did have all the other prerequisites, that is like more that you can offer, right? But it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't think it's a bad idea to, basically be friendly with like your local law enforcement and stuff. I mean, I don't know how you feel about law enforcement, but it's one of those things where it's like, I guess, since I'm not getting into a lot of trouble, then I'm not really worried about that. But basically, like, at the same time, it's like, I think it's cool to be able to do this kind of stuff. And if you do end up getting all of that equipment, you get to shoot cops, which is like, I mean, like,
hey, you're right. It's like you said, you get to play GTA in real life. You get to shoot cops. You right? Get to steal. Yeah. You get to steal a police car. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing too that's like so interesting to me, I guess like out of all the stuff we talked about, this is probably something I should have brought up earlier. But it's like, dude, like running around inside of a school shooting paintballs at cops is pretty fucking fun. Like, if you just look at it from just the objective standpoint of like what you're actually doing, it's really cool because you can't just normally do that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how good video games are, it will never come close in terms of like, well, until they like do like full dive, like, stuff, maybe then. But like basically it's like, being living, breathing bodies, like running around inside of a school, shooting your actual AR at cops is really fun, right? And it's a very unique experience. I mean, I don't know what you'd be training for, but it's maybe perhaps not training value whatsoever. That's but it's just pure.
I just want to say it for our lawyers out there. We do not condone shooting at cops. This is only. This is only hypothetical and training events only.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then again, do what you want to do, right? Fuck around and find out. That's the number one rule.
Yes, yeah. But this is a way to fuck around and have fun. You know what I mean? It's not even like fuck around and find out. It's
I mean, they're just gonna shoot you a
FA.
fuck ton back, so that's really because it's
Well,
like,
but see, like that's the fun part of it because after everything's said and done and the dust is settled, then like it's cool to like, go talk to those cops and like a lot of the cops are actually like pretty thankful for when you shoot them because it like teaches them something. You know what I mean? Like I've had many officers come up to me after like skirmish engagements and microfights where they were like, dude, you got me like so good like here, and they were like showing me like where I was hitting them and stuff. And like in some cases you can like because the projectiles are kind of slower, you can tell where you're hitting them as you're shooting them. So basically it's like it's kind of neat to like see like things go down and like of course you're going to get shot up too, but it's like it's cool to be able to exchange fire and then like talk to them about it after, right? And so like that's kind of like I don't know. I think it's a very interesting and unique experience. So it's like I would highly recommend like if you're able to go do this kind of stuff, even if it's just like to start at the bottom, volunteering as like an injured person or like some whatever role play like roles that they need. It's like eventually you can basically work your way to the point where you're terrorists win. No, I'm just
yes, it's just like Counter Strike. It's real life
yeah.
Counter Strike. That's what.
Switching sides.
Oh no. Yeah, you gotta buy the op first. Oh man, do they make an op simunition? They totally
I
should.
don't know, actually. But see, I don't understand why they would make that.
For Counter Strike, obviously, they do make an AK. Like I've played with this Sim AK. It's pretty funny.
So, like, I mean, so as a civilian, like, I am not affiliated with law enforcement or military at all. I have a sim bolt for ARs that I can drop into pretty much any one of my ARs. I have a Glock 19 sim kit, I have a 226 sim kit, and I have an MP5 sim kit. And this is all stuff that was acquired outside of like I didn't have like some special access to like law enforcement portals or anything like that. Like I just bought this stuff like Gunbroker and like online places and like basically
Online
local
places.
shop like online websites, like legitimate websites.
No,
Okay,
I get it, but online places.
Look, it is a place and it's online. Like I don't understand. Like what's the problem?
Yeah,
here?
man. I just go to like the city places to go to like the inside the mall places to the store places and
Yes, online places. Okay, I stand by it.
oh, okay.
Uh, but yeah, so like all this stuff I've acquired like like basically privately. So it's like you can find this stuff, right? And then like the rest of the stuff is more or less just like it's like all the kit that you would have. Like, to be fair, I bought my LBM in the middle of COVID when like everyone was like hella scared and basically everyone was like, I mean, you see those dudes like walking around with like full on gas masks on their face. So then I was like, you know what? This is justification to spend $600 on a gas mask right now, and like hella filters and stuff. So it's like, to be fair, I bought that at a very like specific time. But at the same time, a lot of times you can buy like paintball masks will work pretty well for the most part. I would just buy like higher quality ones and stuff. You can wear gas masks and like there's all kinds of options. Yeah.
I would
So
get one with a fan built in. You'll thank me.
yeah. Oh yeah. And then like helmet, plate carrier, like all the other stuff is just regular gear that you see guys are like buying nowadays anyway for like whatever training purposes they want to use it for. So yeah, kind of.
You mean LARPing?
Yes, actually.
Let's face it, nobody here actually trains. Okay, everyone's just here to LARP.
Live action role play.
Well, I think it's pretty much.
This combat force set is all you need.
Yeah. You just bring, you're right. Just bring a Nerf gun and show up to one of these events. I'm sure, I'm sure they'll love it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, or who knows? Maybe they'll just give you a blue gun and you can just get shot for fun without being able to shoot back.
Yeah, actually, sometimes that does happen. So that is one of those things where
I had one. I have funny. We have one where I guess the good guys. I don't know if they can be called good guys because they didn't want to wear gear um, for reasons. No, partly because they wanted to look cool, partly because they had to do something else. So they didn't want to wear gear, but they still want to shoot some guns. So they were like, okay, you guys get water guns.
wow, wow.
So the Op 4
I
had
mean,
water guns, and then while the Op 4 wore full gear, getting shot by Sims, while they just wore eye protection, just in case. I guess they had a stray,
yeah.
but then they shoot Sims. So just saying, that
So
sometimes
I
seems like that does happen too.
see. I've been there too, and like that was kind of a BS situation because it was the same kind of deal, except the reason why they didn't want to wear full like gas masks and stuff was because it was too hot. And
Hmm.
then I was like, okay, so does that mean like if it's too hot, but there's like a CBurn issue, you're just not gonna wear your masks? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, yeah. So
I mean,
anyway,
what's
but
what's
but
what's interesting is we still did pretty well, and so what's funny is like it just got you into playing more ratty. I say playing, but like
uh-huh.
you just play super ratty. It's like Counter Strike, like gaming the analogy. You just camp. Like literally, you just
Yeah,
camp hard corners or like really weird angles that they don't expect because like you have a fucking sword gun and you just get them,
yeah.
which is pretty funny because you can also because they're all stacked up sometimes. So if they don't check that, you can just spray them. but then
See,
all
at
of them,
least See,
huh?
at least you're using projectiles.
Yeah,
Whereas, like the time that I did, oh man, it was like really messed up because we were supposed to get blanks so that we could at
mm,
least like have
yeah,
stimulus for them
yeah.
to like run towards and like set off the
I
situations.
see.
The blanks didn't run in our guns, so essentially
Oh,
we just had non-functioning guns. So that was kind of lame, basically.
yeah. So hey, just in the
Because we
future,
were
just use
also
squirt
like
guns.
yeah, because we're also like wearing like all the masks and a lot of stuff, and then they're just like, yeah, we don't want them to get like heat stroke. It's like, well, what about us?
Yeah, yeah. So either way, still a good time, and you'll laugh about
yeah,
it. It's good memories. And
yeah,
I think I saw somebody commented on the Instagram, but if you can do it, if you're serious about this, obviously dropping a lot of money, but even without like the sim part, if that's like the kind of a last afterthought, and you do it, it's really because it actually puts you in a position to test your gear, your tactic, and your
oh
your
yeah, that's
fitness
true.
too,
Yep.
right? Because it's one of those three things. You never know. You don't actually get to do that if you're just even if you do really hardcore, like course fire or like carbine forces, whatever. You still can't fully know, hey, how is all my training, my gear, and
Yeah,
myself gonna actually perform? Because I every time I do it, I learn a little bit basically, and it's never stopped that like you can really read about or like kind of like you know visualize until you actually do it.
yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I had never been dragged before, but I have the drag handle on the back of my plate carrier, and now that I've been dragged, I know that I actually have my drag handle like set up properly, and like I was like dragged around inside a shoot house and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah, I had to
And
shoot. I had to shoot while I was being dragged. That was pretty fun, actually.
yeah, and yeah, just like a lot of your equipment and stuff, it's like you're gonna like modify as you find out all these like different little nuances and stuff, and so that's definitely a good training value. One more thing I'll add before we wrap this up: the sometimes when you go to these events, they also can be kind of low key like a free medic class because
That's
one of
true.
the events that I went to recently, they went over tourniquet application, they went over chest seal application, they went over like blood checking, like the type of equipment that you should have, how to apply them appropriately, how to self apply, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and like a lot of times you go and like medical classes could be like five, six, $700 for like a 2 day, 1 or 2 day course or something like that. Maybe it's cheaper where you are, but basically it's like volunteering to go to this kind of stuff. A lot of the stuff they cover, yeah, I mean, that's money you saved right there. And you're just volunteering your time, right? So yeah. All right. Well, anyway, that's pretty much what we got for you. Thanks for tuning in with us and listening to our, us ramble on about things that don't matter to anybody, really, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, hopefully we will have some more fun and interesting topics. If you want us to talk about anything in particular, put it in the comments below, and feel free to comment on the Instagram page as well as on like through DMs and stuff. We're happy to chat with you guys, and like we're interested to know like what do you guys want us to hear? Want to know about?
I want to know